Hello and welcome to Discourse of Peacocks, where today we are going to be discussing Preston North End 1, Leeds United 1, in which it was an incredibly frustrating game and a game that unfortunately we have seen all too often away from Elland Road this season. We're going to go straight into the game. I'm not going to go on about it. It's one that I'm going to report on, vent on, and move on from, because I don't want to wallow too much on the misery that Leeds United away form causes me at the moment. So we'll get straight on to the good. The other week when it was the massive long list of good things and minimal small things, minimal bad things. Unfortunately, that has flipped the other way around. I'm going to start with the fans because I think the away fans really deserve all of the credit for that game. They didn't stop from the first whistle to the final whistle. They were incredible from what I could hear on the TV. Obviously, I watched the match on Sunday morning, so obviously I knew the result and everything, and I knew the obvious frustrations that everybody was feeling. And but when I was watching it the following morning, all I could notice was how loud, how supportive, how vocal, how encouraging, how atmospheric our fans away from home were on Saturday. And they made me proud to be a Leeds United fan, because for me, that's what it's all about. The supporting, the singing, the camaraderie between the fans, the collective frustration, the collective support, and the fact that they just did not stop from minute 1 to minute 95. It was brilliant. And I think, for me, they were one of the shining lights in an otherwise quite game again. So yeah, full on admiration for Leeds United fans. Were pretty damn special. Dan James, I know. This isn't just like a Dan James like loving channel, but the boy done good, and he really, for me, personifies what it means to have heart and not give up. And he must be frustrated as well with other people not performing. He's been robbed of so many assists so far this season. His statistics should be so much better than they are. Simply, if we could finish our dinner, they would be. He was the most threatening person, I would say, other than maybe Solomon as well. I think obviously he hits the woodwork, hits his cross into the box that causes the Joseph/own goal. Obviously it won't go down because it's an own goal. It won't go down as an assist, but it was a shot creating action. Yet again, Dan James at the heart of the attack. I think it's something, he's arguably our best offensive player this season. And I really hope he stays fit, because I think he's going to be pivotal in pushing us forward when the real tough bit comes after the March international break. I think if we keep him fit, we give ourselves the best possible chance of getting promoted this season. That's how important I think he is going to be, and that's how important I already feel that he is. I said it last year, if Dan James doesn't A, get injured, and B, lose form after that Wales penalty miss, whilst he was still obviously getting back to fitness, I think that he gives us something in those games that we were missing at the end of the season. He does, potentially change things up, spur other players on. So yeah, Dan James, for me, probably my man of the match. if I was to give it to a player, it would be Dan James. If I was going to give it to a group of people, it would obviously be the fans. I think, yeah, they were the 12th man for us on Saturday. Okay, Aronson was getting into great positions. We'll go on to the sitter in the bad section, but he was getting himself into those positions, and he was buying us some really good fouls as well. He's the one that Whiteman gets his yellow card on. Obviously, we'll go on to Whiteman later on, but he again was vital for that, and he should have been instrumental in propelling us forward as well. I'm really trying to drag some positives out of this game. The first half of the second half, and then the last kind of 5-10 minutes of the second half, we really came out with a bit of tenacity, and we created more in those kind of 20 minutes than we did for the entire first half. I don't think we registered a shot on target in the first half, which is just not good enough. We can all criticise Daniel Farke's setup away from home. We can all criticise his team talks. We can all criticise his substitutions, but he isn't on the pitch. He can't get the ball to, what did we have? 18 shots for on target? That's not good enough. Like, it isn't good enough. We're wasteful. We have to create so many, and we are creating. But if we were just tiny, just a smidgen more accurate with our shots, test the keeper, don't just hit it right at him. So many of the times that our shots on goal that are on target end up actually just being fairly piss weak shots. They're not testing the keeper. They're not making the keeper make worldy saves. They're just fairly bog standard saves. And yeah, oh God, this is the good section here. This is the good section. Bamford, again, getting into good positions. We know that Bamford gets into good positions. We know that, and that's part of what makes him so frustrating, is that his natural movement. And it's been the same with Joseph. Again, obviously it was an own goal. It doesn't count as Joseph's goal. But if Joseph isn't there, the defender doesn't put it into his own net without Joseph being there. So again, him being there leads to the goal. Yes, it doesn't count as his goal, but I'm really trying to drag some positives out of this game. I really, really am, for my own mental health's sake. Byram and Bogle were both pretty good going forward. Byram started off the move going forwards, in which Aronson missed. I thought he was far better going forward than he was in the Bristol 0-0 game. Bogle, I thought he was really good going forwards. Defensively, he was a bit shaky, but I think there's lots of other people that are just as much to blame, if not more so, for the goal than he was. So I'm not going to criticise Bogle too much, because we know that he isn't defensively the best person. So it's pointless criticising somebody that we were told before we bought him that he wasn't defensively the best, and B, we've seen with our very own eyes that he isn't defensively the best. So we know that we'd get more out of him going forward, and that's the reason why Farke got him, is because he does move us up the pitch. Archie Gray struggled to get that balance right. He wasn't as attack minded as Bogle was, and we need that attacking impetus kind of thing. We've got goals from all of the back line, so going forward is important in a Daniel Farke system, and specifically with the players that we've got, to create that width. Because unfortunately, I was watching it on the Sky commentary, which meant that I had the delight of Andy Hinchcliffe. And one of the things that I did unfortunately agree with him is that we were Jesse Marshing it. We were going, everything was so congested in the middle. So we did need the fullbacks to create some width, because even our wide players were just kind of funneling in towards the middle. We seem to just have to, and that seems to be another thing of when we're away from home, we seem to go a lot more narrow, which I don't quite understand the logic of it. At home, we do seem to be a little bit wider, and it works. And we go up against low blocks at home 90% of the games, and it works at home. So I would much rather us use that full width because we excel in wide areas. We're too congested in the middle, and it also means that because you've got everybody in such a small space of time, small area, all it needs is one long ball, and all of a sudden they're on the counter attack, and that is what we saw. It's really frustrating to not just. I'm going to have to go straight into the bad because I've dragged as much as I possibly can out of the bad. We're still on for 2 points a game right now. So that's good. We're still in automatic spots. We couldn't go out because, Burnley, because we got a point, even though obviously Burnley did win. So I think they're only 1 point behind us now. But goal difference plus a point means that, we were fine. We were still in the top two. And I've seen a lot of people losing their heads when it comes to, oh, well, we're not winning the games that other teams are, but we're still ahead of Burnley. Yes, if you add Sheffield United's 2 point deduction back on, there would be 5 points ahead, but they don't have those 2 points. So it's what ifs and maybes. They don't have those 2 points. So they're only 3 points ahead of us, and we've still got to play them again. If they were 3 points ahead of them and we'd already played them twice, like in the Leicester situation last year, I'd be a lot more concerned. But we've still got to play them again. And we know that they will play against us at home. So I do think away for us, at home for them. So I do think that that's another good thing. It's the fact that they will play against us, which will work in our favour. Let's bite the bullet. Let's go on to the bad stuff. My list is unfortunately quite long. I'm going to try and go through them quite quick because, obviously it's Monday evening when I'm recording this. There's been a lot of content created about this game, a lot of frustration that has already been aired. So let's not wallow too much because we've already done it. Tanaka looked tired. He's had in the last 3 or 4 games, he hasn't been as sparkly. And that's not a criticism. That's just an observation of him, is that he let the ball run for the beginnings of the Preston goal, I believe. So he just looks tired. I think the fact that obviously we've now got a week until the next game will do everybody a world of good. The fact that it's at home as well will do everybody a world of good. So, yeah, Tanaka, he just looked a bit tired. Rodon defending for that first goal, for their only goal. He needs to do better, in my opinion. He was doing that and letting the ball go across him, and I don't understand quite why. He clearly thought that Bogle was further forward than he actually was, but regardless, safety first. Especially when you're playing against a team that they're playing a low block, but they're incredibly fast on the counter. Just snuff that opportunity, put it out for a corner if you have to, get your foot underneath it and flick it backwards like Strauch did, in a couple of games previous. There's ways that you can do that, have some responsibility, take that responsibility, on yourself. Don't just do that and let the ball go across you for them to just tap it in. Okay, Meslier. There's multiple steps before it gets to Meslier. I will say that. I think multiple people let themselves down and let Meslier down before Meslier got a chance to do anything. But Mellier's wrists are weak as hell. And I would just like him to be a little bit stronger. I really would. I've said this, I'm not changing, I'm not being reactionary. I think regardless of whatever happens at the end of the season, whether we stay in the Championship, whether we get promoted, I think Illan Mellier's journey at Leeds United is done. I think we need to invest in a good, well-versed keeper. I think that we need to invest. I know we've got new goalkeeping coaches, but for me, we need better as well. We need better behind the scenes. We need 2 goalkeepers, in my opinion, 1 first choice, 1 second choice plus, if that makes sense. I want somebody who can actually challenge. Part of the reason I think that Mellier's just plateaued and in statistically speaking, he has regressed is because there's A, no competition, B, terrible goalkeeping coaches, and C, I just think he's been quite peppered for so many years that I just think he's halted, and I think he needs a fresh start somewhere else and to kickstart his career on, because for somebody, yes, he's 24, I believe, so he's still in goalkeeping terms very young, but he has been first choice goalkeeper now for 5 seasons, and his statistics have gotten worse on worse every season, and we've been in the Championship for 2 of those seasons now. So he should have improved. He really should have. I'm not going to go too much into that because this isn't about bashing players. It's just facing a few realities. And if we get promoted, and even if we don't get promoted, for me, I wish him nothing but the best. But for me, my personal opinion, Illan Mellier's journey at Leeds United should be over at the end of the season. Next one, Andy Hinchcliffe. He described the Preston goal as a goal of the season. I really pity that man if the football that he is watching week in, week out, that is the goal of the season for him. There was nothing spectacular. Yes, it was fast, but there was a catalogue of errors. It wasn't just a spectacularly well-worked goal. It wasn't a spectacular finish. It came off his shin. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was a goal against a team at the top, like near the top of the table. And yeah, like it wasn't the goal of the season. You know, tell me you hate Leeds United and you let every part of that hatred seep into every element of your commentary without telling me. Like, that is that man. Yeah, Aronson, obviously, I briefly mentioned it earlier on, his 27th minute, I think it was just before the Bogle foul, Whiteman foul on Bogle. We score that. Whiteman gets sent off, which he should have done. We go on and we win that game because we're already drawing by that point. I actually think, even though I wanted Whiteman off because it was the correct decision, I actually think that we lose that game if Whiteman goes off, because of the fact I just get flashbacks of like the Huddersfield game, of the fact that they just stick everybody. They've got their goal. They're incredibly a tight-knit group. Hecky's got them, you know, really playing for one another and organised and everything like that. Yeah, I actually think, ironically, that the ref being so weak and spineless genuinely helped us in the end, because they didn't need to score another one. They could have just defended, and then we'd have found it even more difficult, because we wouldn't have had any spaces to try and get in behind them like we did in the second half. We wouldn't have had any of that had they been down to 10 men. Well, that doesn't stop the fact that the referee was abysmal. Like, the referee, yes, we can't blame not scoring our chances on the referee. We can't blame the referee on not getting any shots on target in the first 45 minutes. We can't blame the referee on anything like that. But Whiteman, it was a yellow card for the Aronson one, and it was like a yellow plus. I don't think it was a straight red, but in the Premier League, there is a shout. I've seen it given before. So it was definitely a second yellow without any shadow of a doubt. That was a second yellow because it was a yellow card. And I hate, I'm pretty sure Joe Wayman said this the other day, hates the fact that the threshold for a second yellow has to be so much higher than a yellow card. For me, a yellow card is a yellow card. It's your own fault if you commit a yellow card offence when you're already on a yellow card. We saw it ourselves with Rodon, the first yellow card in the 0-0 against Hull, away at Hull last season. He committed, it wasn't a foul, he got a yellow card, then he committed a foul, which was a yellow card, and it was a second yellow card. So therefore, he got sent off. First one shouldn't have been a yellow, but the second one was. He was already on the yellow, so he shouldn't have committed the foul. Whiteman was already on a yellow, 3 minutes before for the foul on Aronson, and then he had a killer follow through as well. I just think there were several of their players. Please excuse if I butcher this name. Osmacic as well. I'm really, really sorry if I have butchered that name. I'm not meaning to offend anyone. He was a tosser. That I don't mind if that's offensive. He fouled Pirro. He fouled Rodon multiple times, pulled him back, hacked at his ankle, went purposely through with the follow through. He was a nightmare, which is why why Dan James gets man of the match for me. He fully deserved the ball to the face that Dan James gave him. That's possibly one of my favourite yellow cards that any player's ever received this season. So thank you, Dan James. Pirro, he got mentioned twice in the first half. Yeah. He's not it. He's the most clinical finisher. But we don't play as well, and especially away from home, especially when teams are going to sit back away from home, we need somebody to tire them out, and Pirro does not tire anybody out. In fact, they probably get energised when they see Pirro walking on the pitch because of the fact that they know that they're not going to be dragged here, there and everywhere. They're not going to have to, watch the balls going over the top and the runs, that Joseph and Dan James make. He's incredibly frustrating, and you take away his goal scoring and he is still the same frustrating player. I just think that we have kind of look at him with kind of white rose tinted glasses a little bit because of the fact that he's scoring, but actually you take the goals away and his overall gameplay is not as good as Joseph's. It's just not. If Joseph could finish his dinner, there would be zero questions over who would start. But for me, Joseph starting, Pirro coming on and scoring was working. I think we should go back to that. It was working. I want what's best for the team, not what's necessarily best for each individual, if that makes sense. Because I know it's hard to say, Pirro, you don't deserve to start because you've been scoring, but the team suffers. And I'm all about the team. It is side before self. And that includes the manager looking after the side instead of the individual selves. So for me, Joseph should start. For me, 9 and 10 are essential in January. Bamford's miss. We've talked about Aronson's miss. Bamford's miss, 0.98 XG. We've seen it all before. I'm not going to talk about it anymore because it's just going to turn into a bashing session. And I don't want that because people go too far with the bashing. It was frustrating. He is frustrating. We need better. Again, he's of a similar thing that I said about Meslier. I think that no matter what, at the end of the season, we need to part ways. Do I think if we stay in the Championship, we'll get rid of him? No, I don't, because I don't think anyone will take him. And I think he sees out the rest of his contract. at Leeds United for his own financial security. With his history and injury record, on a human level, I can understand it. On a Leeds United level, it pisses me off. I don't want to just pay random people who aren't contributing to the team. So, yeah, but I'm not going to go into that miss because we all know it was terrible. There's no getting away from it. It was terrible. There's no excuses, just no anything. You get any part of your body accurately onto that ball and it goes in the net. Even if it means you fumble it into somebody else like Joseph does and you cause an own goal. That's why Joseph isn't getting criticised for the miss when actually he missed it, just like Bamford did. It still ends up in the back of the net, which, is what Matty from Imagine Not Being Leeds said the other day. And I agree with the fact of it's two exact same, both players miss. One ends up as a goal, so you can forgive the player. The other one doesn't, so you get frustrated. And because there is a long history of some terrible misses, it just compounds that issue. So let's not go into it anymore. Let's go on to the final thing. More frustration. Yeah, I don't know why we don't take our home form into away games. I don't understand it in terms of we can break down low blocks at home. We've been doing it consistently all season, barring Burnley. I'm not going to count Portsmouth because they didn't really play a low block. They were attacking us. So I'm not going to count that as a low block. Preston's gameplay was to frustrate us, was to buy fouls, was to do all of these things, which they did brilliantly. They did very effectively. And when you have such gutless referees, it makes their game plan even easier to execute. And they did it perfectly. You've got to give credit to them because of the fact that they had a game plan. They executed it better than our game plan. It's not good enough. Our away form, it isn't. But I don't think it's time to scream Farker out because we still are tracking the 2 points per game, which is it's not just a Farker thing of 2 points per game. This is usually what gets you out of the championship. You can study it. It's not just a Farker saying these things. It is statistically true. So there is a lot of logic behind it. Doesn't always lead to attractive football, but you need two teams to play attractive football, and most teams do not set up to get anything other than a point against us or a fluky win. And every team that has beaten us this season have got those fluky wins, the one goal, and that's it. So we have a tendency, we are so highly strung as Leeds United fans that we overreact on both ends. When we win, we are going to fly away with the league. If we lose, sack Farker, the players aren't good enough, the manager's not good enough, this isn't good enough, that's not good enough. I tend to fall somewhere in the middle in terms of I can understand why people are getting frustrated, but I also see what getting rid of your manager halfway through a season does to you. And why would a manager want to come to a club that are sacking a manager who A, got them 90 points and in any other normal championship season would have been promoted automatically, B, is on track for that exact same score, potentially even more because we have greater depth on the bench than we did do last year. Who's going to come into that if a manager on paper was doing everything right? You could see the scores and you could see, you can plan and project that forward. And, we're on for a 90 plus point season again. You're not going to risk that when you're just thinking, well, these owners are a bit, trigger happy. These fans are a bit toxic. Nobody's going to want to come. The expectation is promotion. If the manager was going to come, it would have been halfway through last season, not this season, because we have to get promoted this season. Anything else is failure. So, yeah, we almost stole it right at the end as well. The very last kind of chance in the last 30 seconds of the game. You know, imagine how different we'd have all felt if we'd have just stolen that win. Falcon needs to figure out a way to motivate them away from home. The players need to turn up away from home. They need to not be arrogant. I think it's one thing fans being arrogant. I think it's another when the players are arrogant. We saw it last year at Stoke. We saw it last year at QPR. We saw it last year at multiple away games. You know, we saw it last year at Huddersfield. We have to turn up at these games. You can't just say, oh, well, this is a 3-point game. You know, we've got this already in the bag. Football doesn't work like that. If every team and every game was played on paper, we'd have already, you know, romped the league with 100+ points this season. It doesn't work like that. So Farke does need to work on his motivation. The players also need to grow up and understand the weight of a Leeds United shirt, but also the joy that comes from wearing a Leeds United shirt, and how loved you can be if you get us promoted, how loyal we will be as a fan base, but also how fickle we will be if you don't get us promoted. The joys and the dubious pleasures of being a footballer has these expectations on them, and they need to turn up. There's several players right now that away from home are just simply not performing to the standard and the level that they should be. But that's a mixture of players, manager, tactics, just everything merged into one. I really hope we find it, and I genuinely do believe that we will, because I think that we have a much more balanced squad. I don't think we have as many egos in the squad, and I think that as the season goes on, the players grow closer, I think we find that form. If we don't, I'll be right there with everybody else rioting, but right now, I'm calm. If you want to agree, disagree with anything that I say, any suggestions on any videos that you want me to make other than kind of reviews and just one-off ones that I think of myself, please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and also if you would like to become a member, then please press the join button as well. It's only a couple of quid a month, cheaper than a Costa coffee. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.